In this video, we're going to look at finding the least common multiple of two or more numbers. So all that a least common multiple is it's the smallest number that is a multiple of each number. So let's make a table to figure out what this really means. We have the numbers 4 and 14. I'm going to come up with a table of multiples of these numbers. So I'm going to multiply by 2. 4 times 2 is 8. 14 times 2 is 28. And we're going to keep doing that. So I'm going to multiply by 3. 4 times 3 is 12. 3 times 14 is 42. And we're going to keep going. And our goal is to find a number in this row that is the same as a number in this row. Now, since this number here is already so much bigger than this one, I'm going to continue the table just by finding multiples of 4. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 5 is 20. 4 times 6 is 24. And 4 times 7 is 28. If you look, we have a 28 here in this row, and we have a 28 here in this row. So the least common multiple of 4 and 14 is 28. And with the least common multiple, what you'll see is that 28 should be divisible by both 4 and 14. So 28 divided by 4 equals 7, and 28 divided by 14 equals 2. Now, whenever you're asked a question like this, you don't always have to set up a table and compare the two numbers. This table, you could imagine, could get really long really quickly. So there's another way that you can come up with the least common multiple. And the way you do that is with prime factorization. So 4 is the same thing as 2 times 2. And these are both prime. So the prime factorization of 4 is 2 squared. 14 factors into 2 times 7. And these are both prime. So the prime factorization of 14 is 2 times 7. What you want to do is look at your prime factors. So for 4, we have a 2, and then a second 2. And for 14, we have a 2 and a 7. And you want to make a list of the prime factors for your least common multiple. And the way you go about doing that is you start with the 2's. You look at, okay, there's 2 2's here, there's 1 2 here. So your least common multiple, you have to take the greater number of 2's. And then there's no 3's, there's no 5's, but there's a 7. 14 has 1 7 as its prime factor. 4 doesn't have any 7's, so we're going to take the greater number. 1 7 is greater than no 7's. So 2 2 7. And you're going to multiply these numbers together. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 7 is 28. And you see, when you do the prime factorization method, we didn't have to go through and set up this entire table, but we got the same answer of 28. So let's try another example, and let's just jump right to using the prime factorization method. We are looking for of 8 and 30. 8 can factor into 2 times 4. 2 is prime. 4 can factor into 2 times 2. So the prime factorization of 8 is 2 times 2 times 2. 30 can factor into 5 times 6. 5 is prime. But 6 can factor into 2 times 3. So the prime factorization of 30 is 2 times 3 times 5. Now we have to go through all of our prime factors and pull out the greater number. So we're comparing how many 2's do we have here versus how many 2's do we have here. We have 3 2's here. We have 1 2 here. So our least common multiple has to have 3 2's. Our next prime number would be 3. We don't have any 3's here, but we have 1 3 here, so we have to put 1 3 for our least common multiple. Our next prime number would be 5. There's no 5's here. There's 1 5 here. So we have to take 1 5 for our least common multiple. And then you see we don't have any numbers greater than 5 for our prime factors. So at this point we can solve. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. 3 times 5 is 15. 8 times 15 would give us 120. So our least common multiple of 8 and 30 is 120. Let's try one more example. We're comparing 10, 125, and 50. 10 factors into 2 times 5, and those are both prime. 125 factors into 5 and 25, with 5 being prime, but 25 can factor into 5 times 5. 50 factors into 5 times 10, 5 is prime, and then 10 factors into 2 times 5. So we're dealing with a bunch of 2's here and a bunch of 5's. What we need to do is look at our 3 sets of factors, and we see that there's a 2 here and a 2 here. Each of them only have 1 2, so our least common multiple only needs 1 2. We have 1 5 here. For 125 we have 3 5's, and for 50 we have 2 5's. So we need to take the greatest number of 5's, which would be 3 5's. And when we do this calculation, 2 times 5 is 10, times 5 gives us 50, times 5 gives us 250. So the least common multiple of 10, 125, and 50 is 250.